Our top story this morning on Morning Brief at 9. Nate Anderson, the short seller who made his name with campaigns targeting billionaires Gautam Adani, Jack Dorsey and more, said he's disbanding his small but highly impactful short seller firm Hindenburg Research. That's right. Hindenburg Research is going to shut down. It's not going to shut down immediately, but it is likely to shut down in the next 6 months or so. Now, let's take you through why Hindenburg is in news and has been in news. Nate Anderson started Hindenburg Research in 2017. Remember, this is a US-based short seller and has been responsible for attacks on the Adani group of companies as well as Gautam Adani. His report in 2023, Jan 25th, 2023, called the largest con in corporate history on Adani Group got released. Now, remember, as part of this release of the report, Adani Group companies had lost as much as 1 lakh crore rupees in market capitalization the moment the report got released. Now, Adani Group had denied these allegations. A Supreme Court appointed panel found there was no lapse on part of market regulator SEBI. Now, last year, Hindenburg also attacked SEBI chair Madhvi Puri Buch, that's right, in 2024. The report questioned her holdings in Indian and Singapore-based advisory firms as SEBI chair. The report also questioned her husband, Dhaval Buch's influence in REITs, which were formalized under Madhvi Puri Buch's tenure as SEBI chief. Now, Nate Anderson says there is no personal threat behind his decision to shut down. This is big news coming in this morning. Let's understand its implications, not just on Adani Enterprises, but overall on the whole short seller landscape and investigative reporting. Joining us this morning is Gaurang Shah, Senior Vice President, Geojit Financial Services. Gaurang, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on News9 Live. To begin with, help us understand what really is short selling, refresh our memory on that, and how big a deal is it that a research firm called Hindenburg Research, which had targeted not just Adani Group of companies and Gautam Adani and his family, but also SEBI chair Madhvi Puri Buch last year, how important is it that a firm of that nature is shutting down?
Thank you, Karthik, and morning to all of you also. As much as it is news for you, it is news for me, though I have not been able to get much insights into this, but whatever little bit I could understand out of this is that primarily, I think, where will the onus lie now that it has been out in the public domain that they are shutting down? The most important thing we have to understand is the credibility, Karthik, which comes into question. And the way these reports were out, not only on Indian entities, but also on some of the companies in the US and the rest of the world. By shutting down this company, are you trying to wash off your obligations and responsibility in terms of whatever investigation that is likely to go on? Because the shop is shutting down or they are pulling down the shutters does not wash them off of their responsibility and the obligations that they have to meet up with. Whenever you front run short selling, the question that you ask me is without having the shares, you go and sell it off either in the cash market and square it off on the same day, or you carry your short positions in the futures and options segment. It's basically you are having a bearish view on the market or on a particular company on which you have possibly come out with certain reports, etc., etc. So the question that is in my mind, Karthik, is by shutting down, are you washing off all your responsibilities and obligations? And what happens to those cases which are still open? I mean, that's the big question.
Absolutely.
And where does the wisdom come from? That is another big question that I have to ask.
All right, so let's understand this, and let me read a few passages from the letter that Nate Anderson has written and that was released. And he says that the plan has been to wind up after we finish the pipeline of ideas that we are working on. And as of the last Ponzi cases we just completed and are sharing with regulators, that day is today. What do you make of this, Gaurang? Does it mean that there is one more case, a Ponzi scheme, which is being referred to, which perhaps could be released today?
Well, if it does, then it does. I mean, we can't stop it from getting out. But again, you know, the thing is, you said a lot of things, whether it is an Indian entity or an entity in some part of the world. And as far as my knowledge goes, Karthik, there was not enough substance that was out on whatever it was said, whether it was allegations or whether it was a management related issue that Heidenberg had pointed out. And they benefited themselves. I mean, this is also in the public domain. I mean, they had built up short positions even before the reports were out in public domain. So when you front run like this, the big question is in terms of the authenticity and credibility of that particular entity and the report that entity comes out with.
Right.
So see, there is one more joker in the pack that needs to be out now. What and which form it is and where it is, I think we'll only know when the report is out.
Okay, let's look at the Adani Enterprises price chart over the last 5 years. If we can pull that up on our screens this morning, and let's run our viewers through what really transpired in the year 2023, Jan 25th, 2023. So if you look at the chart on your screen right now, this is where Adani Enterprises was peaking on the 9th of December 2022. Adani Enterprises shares were as high as 4,000 rupees a piece. And just a month after that, on the 25th, when the report was released, this is the kind of crash that we saw in the stocks of Adani Enterprises. And even today, 2 years on, almost 2 years on to the date, Adani Enterprises has not yet been able to reach its peak levels of 9th December 2022 when it was trading at 4,000 rupees. So now whether morally the Hindenburg Research firm has been able to absolve itself of all its responsibilities and the pending cases which are in courts across multiple countries in the world on not being one question, but to some extent Hindenburg Research, by way of being a short seller, Gaurang, has been able to pick up great valuations on a stock like Adani that it was shorting.
Yeah, so this is what happens. That's what I was mentioning. Though, let me say this very clearly. I mean, we don't have coverage on Adani Enterprise, and there is very limited coverage with respect to the investment that Adani Group has got. For example, ACC Ambuja is something that we have in our coverage. But I'll again repeat myself. Yes, they benefited out of whatever front running they did before the reports were out. And those shares are finding it a little bit difficult to recoup the lost ground, whether it is Adani or whether it is any other entity. I think it's only a matter of time. We'll have to possibly, try to filter in a lot of information that comes in. And like I said, are you washing off all your responsibilities in terms of your obligation as far as the matters or the cases that lie in the court in respective country, whichever it is?
Actually, now what happens to these questions? Can legally Hindenburg Research even be called now to show evidence, show its documents if the company decides to get disbanded? Can you share some light on what happens on pending court cases, the ones that you're talking about?
I mean, I'm assuming that the respective responsibility will still be there for the uh, respective management of Heidenberg Research to justify their stand. Just because the company is shut shop does not mean that you have been dissolved of all your obligations and liabilities. Uh, you are still an entity despite whether you shut shop or not, and you are responsible towards the legal framework. This is what my understanding it. I am not a legal expert, Karthik, but I am assuming that of whatever little bit knowledge I have, that you will still be responsible for all those cases that you have been short selling and profiteering out of way. So that obligation will still be there. That's my understanding.
All right. You did mention and you gave the disclaimer, Gaurang, that you don't actually have coverage on Adani Enterprises. But hypothetically speaking, a news of this kind, what is it likely to do to a stock that this short seller had targeted? The short seller shutting shop, what happens to the stock that it had shorted itself on?
No, you know what, Karthik? I'm interested to know why he's shutting the shop. I mean, I don't know if we still have clarity over there or not. I mean, you were such a big bear and you were, coming out with reports on companies across the globe. And now suddenly wisdom prevails upon you and your fine sense of judgment has told you that, listen, boy, you need to shut shop. Otherwise, things are going to get difficult. This is what my assumption is. What happens to these stocks? I think there will be a sign of relief. there will be, because the way they got hammered because of this particular reason, and they are still under pressure because of that particular reason.
Right.
Uh, Once that clarity has come, and maybe this will possibly lead people to understand that there was not much credibility in what Hindenburg report said.
Okay, so you were asking for reasons. I can just read out one line which has been stated in the letter that Nate Anderson has written. I don't know whether we should trust it or not, Gaurang, but it says, in fact, the line starts with a question. So why disband now? And after that, the line is, there is no one specific reason, no particular threat, no health issue, and no personal issue. So there are three no's, but there isn't a single answer to why, the question that you're asking, Gaurang.
So that's what I'm saying. There is no why. I mean, there is no why. There is no. I mean, and then Karthik, when anybody starts a statement with no, you have a lot of clarity in terms of what the person wants to say.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'll still give benefit of doubt to this great gentleman, but he has not answered my question or anybody else's question.
All right, and markets are just about opening right now, Gaurang. And what we are seeing on the screen right now on Adani Enterprises is that Adani Enterprises stock is up about 5.5% or so already in trade this morning. And a spike is visible. If you look at the last 5 days, you can see that the stock has moved up from about 3,377 levels to about 2,377 levels to about 2,521 levels. In fact, a little bit of volatility in the stock right now. It is now up just about 3.7% or so from yesterday's closing. I think it goes on to indicate that perhaps there was still this lingering fear in the minds of investors that maybe something untoward with respect to Hindenburg Research's report on Adani could eventually lead to some price action on the negative side. But report of Hindenburg Research shutting down is maybe leading to some confidence in investor sentiment this morning. Gaurang, is that assumption somewhat correct?
This is what I said, Karthik, that it will have a sentimental positive effect, because when the research report was out, all the stocks of Adani Group were down and out. And now with this news, with all three no's, it's a yes for at least Adani Group of companies, because they stood by what they believe in. And one more thing, I think when you raise questions like they did for maybe a group like Adani, or for a very respectable and very honorable entity like SEBI and its chief, and then you suddenly want to uh, get lost in the forest by shutting shop. I don't know. I mean, I have very limited words of advice to give, but I am only waiting for more clarity in terms of absolute reasons rather than the three no's.